Sizzle starts with Bart.
This is 107 The Point. Come on, hit it. Do it. You know you want to.
This is Sports Talk with Phil Kornbluth, Chris Bergen, and Pat Daniel. Sports Talk is heard across the state on radio affiliates of the Sports Talk Media Network and is streaming live on SportsTalkSC.com, as well as Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. The South Carolina Education Lottery lucky number to call in is 888-898-2525. That's 888-898-2525. Now, here are Phil, Chris, and Pat with tonight's edition of Sports Talk.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome into Sports Talk here on the Sports Talk Media Network. Hot Thursday night here in Gainesville, Florida. We've come down for the Super Regional between South Carolina and the Florida Gators, which will begin tomorrow at 6 o'clock. Of course, we cross our fingers and we hope that weather will permit the game to start at 6 o'clock. In the forecast, we've got thunderstorms and things like that you might expect in the month of June when the temperature is in the mid-90s. It was plenty hot out there today as the two teams took their final hacks in the cage and did their final work in the bullpen, and they get ready for one another. And we're going to hear from both sides tonight. Kevin O'Sullivan of the Gators, and we'll hear from Mark Kingston and a couple of the players for the Gamecocks as well. So we got that coming your way tonight. But looking forward to this big showdown between South Carolina and Florida. Two of the 16 teams left in the NCAA baseball tournament. These teams have a lot of history against one another at a very high level. Of course, they played in the they played in the College World Series Championship Series several years ago when the Gamecocks won the national championship. And, of course, they've played each other every year in the SEC, and they've had some very meaningful games along the way in SEC play. And this year, South Carolina took all three games, surprisingly swept the Gators in Columbia, a weekend where the Gator pitching was not up to snuff, as many expected Florida to come in and throw a low number on the Gamecocks. But the Gamecocks hit the Gators pitching well that weekend. I believe, if I remember correctly, Ethan Petrie had 5 hits in the weekend, including a couple of homers. You know he loved that, being a Florida kid and a freshman. The Gamecocks got 26 free passes from the Gator pitching staff that weekend. I don't think they can expect that. Listening to the Florida players talk at the press conference today, they were, the non-pitchers were very confident in their pitching, and the pitchers were confident. They're throwing strikes now. They're not just throwing, junk up there and missing the zone. They're throwing strikes, and that's why they've, since that series with South Carolina, of course, they finished very strongly and went on to earn a tie for the SEC regular season championship and a number 2 national seed here for the NCAA tournament. Fought their way through the losers bracket last weekend here in Gainesville. Had to defeat Texas Tech a couple of times, and they did that. And here they are, ready to meet the Gamecocks at Condren Family Ballpark. The pitching matchup was officially set today. It will be James Hicks going for the Gamecocks, and of course he has been excellent his last 2 outings, no question about it. He comes in with an 8-1 and a 3.32 ERA. He'll be facing Brandon Sproat, 7-4, 4.70 ERA. But everybody knows all these Florida pitchers, they are major league talent, and they all throw hard. So you're going to see pitchers from Florida hitting mid to upper 90s with very high numbers from a strikeout standpoint. So we'll see how the Gamecocks handle it this time around. Different setting, a lot more pressure. They sold out this Super Regional in 20 minutes, I heard today in Gainesville. Tickets were gone in like 20 minutes. So the Gator fans are excited to be in this situation. They want to get back to the CWS, and the Gamecocks want to get back to the CWS. They haven't been there since 2012. So should be a lot of fun, I think. I think we're going to see close, competitive, low-scoring games as Chris Bergen joins us from the Berge Palace in Sardis. I think we're going to see some close, low-scoring games where the pitchers are on their games and keeping the hitters maybe a little bit off balance. And what do you think? Which way do you think this series is going to go in terms of style?
Well, first off, good evening. Glad you got down to Gainesville okay, and hopefully the weather holds. You know, it's interesting, speaking of the weather, before we circle back to Florida and Carolina here for a moment, I saw a report today that because of the Canadian wildfires and all the smoke and the air quality issues in the Northeast, they are actually concerned tomorrow about Virginia and Duke actually being able to play. It's going to be an NCAA decision. I'll be curious when we get Mike Morgan on a little bit later, what would be the backup plan if the air quality is so bad for 3 days that you couldn't get a super regional in? Would you be able to move it to Duke overnight and start playing there, continue to go further south? Would Virginia just automatically go to the College World Series because they're the higher seed? I mean, how would the NCAA parse that one out?
We may have lost Corn here. Corn, I can see your mouth moving on the stream, but we are not hearing you on air. You may be muted on your end. I'm going to bring you down momentarily.
So, Pat, what do you think would happen?
Oh, my gosh. Let's think. That game is being played, and apologies, I was trying to fix that. This is being played in Charlottesville?
Charlottesville, correct. And according to Mike Barber, who's covering the series, it will be the NCAA's decision if air quality in Charlottesville is too poor to play baseball super regional games.
Gosh.
Not just tomorrow, but games this weekend.
And how far away would they have to move? I mean, going somewhere like Blacksburg, because they have the same issue. Calling up the Nationals isn't going to help. They have the same issue. So how far west would they have to go to get away from that smoke? Or south,
It's a great question, and Mike Barber covers the ACC for the Richmond Times-Dispatch, so I'll be fascinated. Maybe Mike will have some insight on that when he joins us later. But to answer Phil's question, I think he's right. I think this ought to be a terrific series. I don't think, if you're South Carolina, you can hope to get the kind of game that you got in Game 1 of the regular season series, in which the Gamecocks just obliterated Florida and actually run-ruled them 13-3, scoring 10 runs in the last 2 innings to end that ball game in 7 innings. I think you're probably going to see a little bit closer to the first 5 innings of that game when USC had a 3-2 lead before Florida actually tied the game going to the bottom of the 6th. Then you could ever get close to seeing 13-3. But Brandon Sproat started that game 1, went 5 2/3 innings. Gamecocks hit him pretty well, but still struck out 8 times, only got 4 hits, but did score 4 runs off of him. And some symmetry here because James Hicks actually did pitch in that game. He came in to close it out in the top of the 7th inning. And if you want to go back a little bit further and look at some history between the Gamecocks and Gators, as Phil was pointing out, if you want to go back a little bit further and talk about the history of those two programs, when they met at the College World Series, Florida was a number 2 national seed that year. They are a number 2 national seed this year. They were the home team in Game 1 of the championship series that year. They'll be the home team tomorrow night in Game 1. South Carolina was the home team, designated home team in Game 2 out in Omaha. So there's a little symmetry there if you want to go back to the 2011 College World Series. So we will see how all of that unfolds. All right, 888-898-2525. We'll try and reconnect with Corn down in Gainesville. Maybe the folks in Florida started hearing us talk about the Gamecocks and wanted to cut his mic, so he couldn't give us any further information. So we'll do that. We'll reconnect with him. Pat, let me know when we've got him up and running here. But if you'd like to join us, your thoughts, 888-898-2525. That's the South Carolina Education Lottery lucky number. Also coming up on the program, as mentioned, we'll get Morgan on the move. His take on all these super regional games. We'll certainly focus in on what's going on in Florida between the Gators and Gamecocks for sure, but we'll also get his thoughts on some of the other regional activity, including, I think he was in Nashville this past weekend, so he got to see Vanderbilt bounced out of its regional, so some of the upsets that took place over the regional weekend. We will do that coming up a little bit later on in the program. We will also hear from Coastal Carolina head baseball coach Gary Gilmore. He is set to join us right after 6:30 this evening, and we will get his thoughts on the Chanticleers coming within a win of advancing to the Super Regionals. They, of course, lost to Duke back on Monday night. They would be in this same scenario had they won. wondering whether or not they would be able to play against Virginia up in Charlottesville starting tomorrow. That game's actually the first one out of the blocks, too, which isn't going to make it any better because it's supposed to start. I think it's the 12 noon first pitch tomorrow. So we'll get Coach Gilmore's take on his team, what lies ahead, and start looking forward to his final year as head coach of the Chanticleers. He's set to join us right after 6:30 this evening. All right, Pat, I tell you what, let's go ahead and squeeze in our first break of the evening. So maybe during the break, we'll be able to reconnect with Korn, find out what's going on in Gainesville, and get his thoughts on all of that we just laid out. So we go ahead and slide in our first break. Can't go to a break yet. All right, so 888-898-2525. If you'd like to join us on the South Carolina Education Lottery lucky number, I'm sure we'll be able to squeeze in a couple of phone calls between now and the top of the hour. We've also got recruiting. I hope Korn had a chance to piecemeal together some recruiting a little bit earlier today, so we'll get into all of that as the program unfolds. Also, some other news notes. I doubt we'll have time. May save this until tomorrow when we're sort of talking baseball, but also wrapping up the week. May not be as focused in on the game as we're going to be tonight. But I think tomorrow on the program, because Smitty will be here with us tomorrow as well while Phil's in and out down in Gainesville with the first pitch set for just after 6 o'clock. But there was a story that broke earlier in the week, and as we approach another Football Friday weekend here in, what are we talking, 2 months before high school football rejoins us, and every Friday here on Sports Talk will be a Football Friday. There was a story that came out earlier in the week about a spring high school football league that would take the top recruits around the country and divide them up on teams across the board. There would be our closest team would be in Atlanta. But there would be teams across the board in major cities, and it's basically a recruiting showcase